Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Welcome to today's upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks, they are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Okay, so for a while now, I've been trying to research a lot into a connection. I remember when I first started this channel, when I first started researching, actually, back in 1995, like a year after my experience, and I never really thought about there being some sort of biblical connection. 100%, I believe it now. I didn't even buy into it until a couple of years ago. And the more I started to learn, the more I started to realize. And as I started to put into what I learned growing up, going to Roman Catholic church school, being confirmated, all of that, and Jesus is our Savior. There is one God, and such, and He created all. And we also learn about how there is temptation, this Luciferian agenda that God does allow to happen. And throughout all of that, there is a lot of heinous things, demons / aliens. And I've started to really talk about how the fallen angels, the first set, prior to the Great Flood, when they came, they taught us things that God did not want us to learn. We were incapable of learning, or we should not have learned these things, because He knew exactly what would happen if we did. That, we would cause wars. So when the initial angels came down, fell in love with the daughter of man, and taught us, magic, metalworking, and all of this, instantly we are, creating swords and going to war. So He knew. He's like, that's not what I wanted to happen. Yet it did. And then we learn in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, Truman, Eisenhower, and all of the other presidents after, and maybe one or two before, had made agreements with these alien / demons. And I believe that what they did by making these treaties or these agreements, hey, we'll give you an opportunity to have some really neat weapons, really neat technology, if you allow us to, harvest humans and do some really crazy practices on them. Of course, during World War II, it was like, yeah, because we had a immediate threat that needed to be stopped, and instantly, next thing you know, these treaties are signed and we are blasted into, 40 years of technology in 2. If you really think and look at how advanced we became just 2 years going into the war. So there's a lot. I believe the CIA does not work for the elected officials. It works for the 13 families. The 13 families work directly for the Luciferian agenda. So there is all of that. And then the connections, Dogman, Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal. I hate to use it as a constant example, but it's one of the best. Jonathan Axelrod, and 4 of his naval intelligence go deep diving into the Tic Tac and go to NIDS at Skinwalker Ranch. Next thing you know, they are threatened, essentially. That's what I believe happened, because they submitted their paperwork stating, hey, this is not of this earth. Their families are attacked by orbs, shadow people, and dogmen. You cannot even deny that they were used as a intimidation factor. Just like that gentleman who had taken a photo of a UFO with his daughter, taking a video. They chased it down. He contacted MUFON. MUFON said, we'll be out to check it out. Week goes by. Guy comes in, wants that freaking video. He doesn't give it up. And next thing you know, the guy sees a dog man kind of staring in his window one night. And, then months later, the real MUFON representative comes and says, hey, I'm from MUFON. How are you? And he's like, no, you're not. I did what I needed to do with these people. And he's like, we don't have anybody like that works for us. What are you talking about? And that story was told to me well before the information had come out on Skinwalker and the Pentagon. I had shared that experience a good 4 years before that book even hit the shelves. So there's some serious connections. Information I'm going to share with you right now is CIA documentation that they do not want shared. And after you hear this, you're going to understand why. Because it really does make quite a large connection to everything that we talk about. Hyperdimensional entities have been recognized, discussed, and warned about for literally a millennia throughout the history of humanity. Naturally, there are many people who scoff at the very idea of such beings, believing them to be fictitious inventions of the human mind. Now, I've talked about this on the live stream. I've made a video, 2 videos about inorganic beings. There's a great thesis written by the College of Hawaii, which is interesting because it seems like the College of Hawaii is kind of on the cutting edge when it comes to paranormal and kind of spiritual things, because they did this amazing thesis. But the book that I own, my copy of the Solomon Island Giants, that actually came from, it was sold by the College of Hawaii's library. So that was a book they had in their library that they were selling. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about that. Anyway, However, the fact that so many cultures, traditions, religions, and spiritualities have discussed the nature of these creatures, using different terms but essentially describing the same thing, gives credence to the idea that they do exist. We have been cautioned for millennia that humanity is under a psychic attack by a group of energetic, discarnate beings that seed thoughts of judgment, separation, anxiety, anger, and fear in order to generate loosh that they siphon off as food, a negative emotional energy. And that's exactly what inorganic beings do. And science has already proved that dimensions exist. These creatures live dimensionally. And an amazing analogy in that thesis is you are in the woods or you are in your home and this organic being is present. We don't know it's present. It presents itself to us by our most inner fear. So let's say I'm out in the woods and this inorganic being knows that I am terrified of running into a crawler. I would much rather see a Dogman than a crawler. I would much rather see a Bigfoot than a crawler. Next thing I know, there's a crawler. I have a huge spike in fear, in adrenaline, anger quite possibly. And it feeds off of that and then gone. That is essentially a psychic vampire, inorganic being, interdimensional creatures or hyperdimensional creatures. In search of what force is really behind the construction of the New World Order and the grander conspiracy, one is bound to investigate these hyperdimensional entities who may be the original handlers, the puppet masters, and mind control perpetrators manipulating the whole of mankind beyond the frequency band of normal perception. We have to take seriously the idea that a hidden ruler or rulers of this crazy world are invisible, or at least operate from frequencies beyond normal perception. After all, no one knows exactly from where thoughts do originate. If there are a force that could control which thoughts are beamed into our mind, then every single living person would be vulnerable to a psychic attack. These hyperdimensional entities are said to be able to infiltrate our mind, make their voice sound like yours, and entice you to do their bidding, all with the aim of generating fear, which is their food. Are they the gods of yore that demanded sacrifice? Are they the evil spirits that possess people? Are they the masters of trickery who continually try to keep us in fear and out of the center of power, our heart? What follows is a list of 10 different traditions and cultures that describe these hyperdimensional entities using their own terms and ideas. The Gnostics, the Akrons, they talk about these creatures. The Gnostics just means knowledge, information. It's a sect of Christian religion. They have their own views. They do believe Jesus is king, but they are centered around learning. So the ancient Gnostic were named after gnosis, the Greek word for knowledge or insight. Gnosticism was a loosely organized religion and philosophical movement that flourished in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. The Gnostics believed that the material world was a result of a primordial error on the part of a divine being, usually called Sophia/wisdom or the Logos. They attributed creation and control of the material world to a semi-divine, ignorant creature known who was called Sakias, the fool, Ledabalf, the blind god, and the demiurge, the Greek demiurgus, which means craftsman, but which the Gnostics meant as the architect or lesser creative force. In Gnostic mythology or cosmology, both Sophia and the demiurge are subordinate to a supreme being, cosmos or God. The demiurge was agnostic to anything spiritual and had a group of servants known as the Acrons, in Greek meaning ruler. The research of Gnostic scholar John Lash reveals that the Gnostics were early mystic shamans who reached high states of consciousness, knew their direct connection to the cosmos, and honored the importance of a female principal, Sophia, to live balanced lives. He concludes that the Catholic Church feared their power, so it killed them and banished the survivors underground. The Dead Sea Scrolls discovered in Palestine and the Nag Hammadi discovered in Egypt, both in 1940s, are important Gnostic tech which exposes the truth about the Acrons. Here is a quote from the Apocryphon of John, a Nag Hammadi text. They sought to overpower humanity in its psychological and perceptual functions, although they saw that human thinking was superior to theirs. For indeed their delight is bitter, and their beauty is depraved, and their triumph is in deception, leading astray, for their own structure is without divinity. The Gnostics are pulsating the idea of a predatory alien presence that took delight in others' pain and that used deception as a tool, disconnected from their own power without divinity. They became parasites that hijack the energies of others to survive. So pretty much just what I said. They are these inorganic beings, these hyperdimensional creatures are essentially energy vampires. Now, really quick before we go any further, why would the government, the CIA, be hiding this information from us? Well, it's simple, because they are an arm, essentially an arm of the Luciferian agenda. They do not work for the elected officials. They are the ones that are usually, if there is something sinister going on, they are usually at the root of it when it comes to America. And I hate really saying this because I don't like being political at all, but Adam Schiff wanted to be the director of the CIA. There's a reason for that. Think about it. Now, I said a list of 10. There is a list of 10 cultures or traditions. So the first one was Gnostic. The second, Christianity. Hyperdimensional entities, demons. These same forces are called demons in the Christian tradition. In this famous quote from Ephesians 6:12, the creatures are actually called rulers or authorities, which directly echoes the language used to describe the Acrons in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi text. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Christianity also contains a tradition of exorcism of evil spirits. The gospel contains many stories of Jesus casting out evil spirits. This tradition continues to current day. Father Gabriel Amorth was a former official in the Vatican who served as an exorcist for the Diocese of Rome for 30 years. He was also the founder of the International Association of Exorcists. Now, another famous exorcist would be, hopefully I can find the book. Of course it's always, another famous exorcist would be, and right here, and Father Malachi Martin. If you've never read this book or seen this movie, Hostage to the Devil, it is truly a must read, a must watch. My dear friend Jim Petnito is in the movie. He was friends with Father Malachi Martin. Father Malachi Martin actually picked him out in a Ed and Lorraine Warren seminar. Jimmy, Mr. Haunted, used to work with Ed and Lorraine when he was young. And there just a lot of, so I mean, it really, if you want to know about any exorcisms, or this is a must read, to be honest with you. And I believe that these aliens, these demons, you know, there are dog-headed aliens. There's a dog-headed race of aliens talked about by the Sumerians. And if these creatures are, if these aliens are demons, what would that make this dog-headed race of aliens? Demons as well. Hyperdimensional entities, jinn, Arabian mythology. In pre-Islamic Arabia, before the rise of the Prophet Muhammad in 6th century CE, Arabian mythology contains references to the jinn, who are considered to be a supernatural spirit. It could be good or bad. Jinn is classified of a number of different types of spiritual beings. The book, The Evolution of the Concept of the Jinn, from pre-Islam to Islam, describes how they could appear as pure spiritual beings or angels or demons, as indicated by Ibn Menzar in Lisan al-Arab. The people of Jahili call angels peace be upon them, jinn, because they are invisible from sight. They could also be tangible creatures, particularly with animal-like characteristics, as stated in the Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics. Were not pure spirits, for they were often represented as hairy, and often some having a form of an ostrich or a snake. The book mentions 4 specific types of jinn in the pre-Islamic world. The ghoul, or G-H-U-L. We get the English word ghoul from this. Ghouls were desert demons believed to rob graves and devour corpses. They seem to appear in many different forms, often animalistic. They could appear and disappear like the light of a torch. They left the physical corpse behind when killed. Thus, the poem by Tabeta Sharan, I spent the night leaning on her, waiting for the morning to see what I caught. Then I saw 2 eyes in an ugly head similar to the head of a cat with a forked tongue. The next jinn would be the Sele. A difference between this and the former is not clear. They seem more sneaky, more clever. A story exists of one marrying and bearing human children, possible Other differences may be that they are active during the day instead of at night, or that the Soleil is female and the ghoul is male. Neither seems to be universally respected, though. This was a man with only half of a body who would beat a human to death if encountered. From the Alges, there a Shik appeared to him. He had only one hand, one eye, one leg. They recited poetry to each other. Then they hit each other, and both of them fell dead. Then the Shaitan, this will be explained now. Shaitan, Shaytan. English word Satan is derived from this Arabic word. They were noted to be smart, cunning, powerful, and generally rebellious. So that was the third culture or tradition. Mind you, that was hyperdimensional entities, jinn, Arabian mythology, ending with Shaitan. Shaitan. Fourth, hyperdimensional entities, Shaitan, Satan, Islam. Shaitan belongs to a pre-Islamic Arabian mythology. However, there is a story that Muhammad was tricked by one. Although there are debates by scholars over the historical incident, realized it came out publicly the next day to correct what he said. In the Quran, there is the story of Iblis, the first shaitan, who was apparently made by Allah from a fire so pure that not even smoke could mar its beauty. This is interesting because reference to the Akrans was made from smokeless fire crops up repeatedly across different traditions. Iblis refused to bow to Adam, who was, after all, a mere man made of clay. So Allah banished him from heaven. Iblis swore to take revenge on Adam and all the clay men like him. Iblis is considered the lord of all shaitan, plural shaitan, and is said to have gathered the army of shaitan and jinn to persecute mankind. A shaitan is described as a sweeping force and a whispering voice visible only to donkeys who bray desperate warnings when they see it approach. This again is noteworthy since the highlights of the theme that these hyperdimensional entities are outside the normal range of human perception. So they can be seen, but not by human. But not outside the perception of other creatures, such as animals like donkey or cats. And not outside the range of human perception when a person, through will, intent, and even psychedelics, expands his or her perceptual range. Fifth, hyperdimensional entity, hostile forces. Sari Urubindu, the mother, Randolph Steiner. Sari Urubindu was an Indian sage who founded Integral Yoga. He wrote about the Akrans using this term, hostile forces. It, the adverse force, is a power that keeps up ignorance and darkness in the world. It can only be destroyed when mankind is no longer in love with ignorance and darkness. Each sadhak has to push it out of contact with his being. When it is gone from him, then there will be no longer any serious difficulties in his sadhana or practice. The hostile forces of our powers of darkness who are in revolt against the light and the truth and want to keep this world under the rule in darkness and ignorance. Whenever anyone wants to reach the truth, they realize the divine. They stand in the way as much as possible. Sometimes they possess men in order to act through them. Sometimes they take birth in a human body. When their use in the play is over, they will either change or disappear or no longer seek to intervene in earth play. The mother, a woman closely associated with Suri Aurobindo and his work, talks about here as she excludes upon spirit possession or demonic possession. Question: when a being is possessed by a hostile force, what becomes of his psychic? Mother: it depends on the degree of possession. Usually it is something progressive. First, there is an influence under which one comes. Second, the influence becomes permanent, and there is one part of the being which deteriorates, which is constantly under this influence and express it. After this, the being which has cast this influence tries to enter that part. Then, usually, this produces a conflict, a kind of interbattle. If one does not know how to resist and doesn't succeed in shaking off the hold, the being that has seized upon a part of the person acts like an octopus and spreads its tentacles like that slowly and everywhere. And finally, it's total possession. At the moment of total possession, either the possessed person becomes completely unbalanced or he becomes a kind of monster. So, interestingly, how I said the Luciferian agenda is like an octopus with arms, and the CIA is like one part. The alien/demon, jinn, all of these things have a connection to the 13 families, the Luciferian agenda, anything anti-good, anything anti, like, wholesomeness. And that's really, truly what these creatures represent and don't want us to have. I mean, if you have a wholesome tribe of people, they are going to be harder to defeat than an unwholesome tribe. And I'm not saying like Native American tribe. I'm saying like us, like a tribal, we are essentially just a large tribe of people, if you really think about it. Rudolf Steiner is known for many things, including his revolutionary ideas about education. He too was aware of the Akrons. There are beings in spiritual realms whom anxiety and fear emanating from human beings offer welcome food. When humans have no anxiety or fear, these creatures starve. If fear or anxiety radiates from people, and they break out in a panic when these creatures find welcome nutrition, and they become more and more powerful. These beings are hostile towards humanity. Everything that feeds on negative feelings, on anxiety, on fear, and superstition, despair, or doubt are in real hostile forces in supersensible worlds, launching cruel attacks on humans while they are being fed. Therefore, it is above all necessary to begin with that the person who enters the spiritual world overcomes fear, feelings of helplessness, despair, and anxiety. But these are exactly the feelings that belong to contemporary culture and materialism, because it estranges people from the spiritual world. It is especially suited to evoke hopelessness and fear of the unknown in people, thereby calling up the above-mentioned hostile forces against him. Hyperdimensional entities have been observed, warned about, and even fought with throughout history of humanity by shamans, mystics, and prophets. Although the way these hyperdimensional entities have been described in each case is different, the similarities among the accounts are far more striking than the differences. Just what are these hyperdimensional entities exactly, and how do they affect you? So that one line right there reminds me of another amazing line out of another go-to, them and us. How Neanderthal predation created modern human. And Danny Van Drimeny, his first line in like the description of the book is, all through time immemorial, or no, why is it that every culture on this planet, whether it be Egypt, China, Native American, South American, Aboriginal in Australia, all have these stories, these just, depictions of humans battling these strange monstrosities, bugbear, ogre, Bigfoot, Yeti, Dogman, werewolf, chimera. It's because we have been fighting them from time immemorial. That's one line. That line out of this book has stuck in my head forever since I first read this book. And then bam, we're hit with hyperdimensional entities have been observed, warned about, and even fought with throughout the history of humanity by shamans, mystics, and prophets. Number 6, hyperdimensional entities, cosmic predator, mud shadow, shamanic a la Castaneda. Shamanic a la Castaneda. Out of all of the descriptions of hyperdimensional entities thus far presented, the description given by Carlos Castaneda in his 12th and final book, The Active Side of Infinity, are the most disturbing. I still remember reading it in my 20s and being shocked to my core. Some part of me knew it was deeply true. It rendered anything else I have learned in my life up until that point as irrelevant and meaningless, because it was, without a doubt, where the real battle lay. Castaneda relates what his mentor Don Juan taught about the Acherons, which he called the cosmic predator and the mud shadow. We have a predator that came from the depths of the cosmos and took over the rules of our lives. Human beings are prisoners. This predator is our Lord and Master. It has rendered us docile, helpless. If we want to protest, it suppresses our protest. If we want to act independently, it demands that we do not do so. This was an energetic fact for the sorcerers in ancient Mexico. They took us over because we are food for them, and they squeeze us mercilessly because we are just substance. Just as we rear chickens in chicken coop, these predators rear us in human coops, human arrows. Therefore, their food is always available for them. Sorcerers believe that the predators have given us our system of belief, our ideas of good and evil, our social mores. They are the ones who set up our hopes and expectations and dreams to success and future. They have given us greed, cowardness, covetousness. It is the predators who make us complacent, routinary, and egomaniacal. In order to keep us obedient and meek and weak, the predators engage themselves in stupendous maneuver. Stupendous, of course, from the point of view of a fighting strategist. A horrendous maneuver from the point of view of those who suffer it. So, essentially, exactly like they said in that one line right here, they are described in some cases different, but the similarities are all too similar. This right here, a strange cosmic predator. Angel? No. Demon? Yes. Alien? Yes. And crushes us, feeds off of our energy, these vampiric creatures. Interestingly enough, and I should have commented on that a while ago when in the Arabian mythology, Ghul, Ghul, or Ghul as the word came from our English. A ghoul in like ancient medieval photos or drawings and stuff really look similar to Dracula or vampires of the Transylvanian age, just minus they're not wearing clothes. And that's interesting because what do these things do? They feed off of energy. They feed off of our life force. So, yes, blood is our physical life force. But everything else, like our energies, our anxieties, our fears, our emotions, are essentially our spiritual life force. So there's no doubt about it that these things are these hyperdimensional entities, these inorganic creatures, are the base of vampire, are the base of any demon that we know of. They gave us their mind. Do you hear me? The predators gave us their mind, which becomes our mind. The predator's mind is contradictory, morose, filled with the fear of being discovered any minute now. Through the mind, which after all is their mind, the predators inject into the lives of human beings whatever is convenient for them, to ensure in this manner a degree of security to act as a buffer against their fear. The sorcerers in ancient Mexico were quite ill at ease with the idea of when the predator made its appearance on Earth. They reasoned that man must have been a complete being at one point, with stupendous insights, feats of awareness that are mythological legends nowadays. And then everything seems to disappear, and we have now a sedated man. What am I saying is what we have against us is not a simple predator. It is smart, organized. It follows a methodical system to render us useless. Man, the magical being that he is destined to be, is no longer magical. He is an average piece of meat. The Mud Shadow explains the seemingly irreconcilable difference between man and the genius engineer, the man, the stupid idiot. Cosmic Predator uses man as food, but in order to get the most loosh, meaning energy, he has to whip men up into a negative frenzy, much as farmers fatten their chickens and cattle before killing them. Don Juan specifically explains that every human has a glowing coat of awareness upon which the predator feeds. It milks man by provoking emotional drama as to generate flashes of awareness that it then eats in other places in the Casadena book series. Don Juan describes the Mud Shadow as a foreign installation and even hints that certain shamans or sorcerers have seen these creatures. Culture or tradition, hyperdimensional entities, the evil magician Gurdjieff, Russian mystic George Gurdjieff, echoed the same idea of man being a deluded creature robbed of his power. Gurdjieff believed most people live their lives in a kind of hypnotic trance or waking sleep. He illustrates in his story of the evil magician. There was an evil magician. He lived deep in the mountains and the forests, and he had thousands of sheep. But the problem was that the sheep were afraid of the magician because every day the sheep were seeing that one of them were being killed for his breakfast, another was killed for his lunch. So they ran away from the magician's ranch, and it was a difficult job to find them in this vast forest. Being a magician, he used his magic. He hypnotized all the sheep and suggested to them, first of all, that they were immortal and that no harm was being done to them when they were skinned, that, on the contrary, it would be very good for them, even pleasant. Second, he suggested that the magician was a good master who loved his flock so much so that he was ready to do anything in this world for them. And third place, he suggests to them that if anything at all were going to happen to them, it was not going to happen to just them. At any rate, no, that not that day, and therefore they had no need to think about it. He then told different sheep, to some, "You are a man. You need not be afraid. It is only the sheep who are going to be killed and eaten. You are not. You are a man just like I." Some other sheep were told, "You are a lion. Only sheep are afraid. They escape. They are cowards. You are a lion. You would prefer to die than to run away. You don't belong to these sheep. So, when they are killed, it is not your problem. They are meant to be killed, but you are the most loved of the friends in the forest." In this way, he told every sheep different stories. And from the second day, the sheep stopped running away from his ranch. They still saw other sheep being killed, butchered, but it was not their concern. Somebody was a lion, somebody was a tiger, somebody was a man, somebody was a magician, and fourth, nobody was a sheep except the one who was being killed. This way, without keeping servants, he managed thousands of sheep. They would then go into the forest for their food, for their water, and they would come back home believing always one thing. It was some sheep who was going to be killed, not you. You don't belong to the sheep. You are a lion, respected, honored, a friend of the great magician. The magician's problems were solved, and the sheep never ran away again. Gurdjieff believed humanity was not only like a flock of sheep, but also food for the moon, a concept which is explained in the fourth way cosmology. Creation proceeds outward and downward from a central point called Sun Absolute. Creation passes through multiple levels known as cosmoi, or worlds, and finally reaches the level of corresponding to Earth due to the special cosmic circumference. Organic life on Earth is necessary for receiving this energy of creation and transforming this into a form that is passed further along to feed the moon, which is said to be growing. All this is seen in a natural process where organic earth life, including man, performs a function in a cosmic organism. A little like bacteria perform a function in human digestive system. The fact of mankind collectively being required to produce certain vibrations or energies to serve various cosmic purposes is stressed throughout George Gurdjieff's Beelzebub's tales to his grandson. So-called planetary influences caused mankind to fight wars, endure cataclysms, so that certain quota of energy released to be fulfilled, and the moon fed. The ideas of a predator eating our awareness, or loosh, for food, for the moon, are all synonyms. Eighth, culture or tradition. Hyperdimensional entities, Wetiko, Native American, and Wetiko, not Wendigo, but Wetiko, Wetiko. In Cree means cannibal. So essentially, what are we talking about? We are talking about these hyperdimensional entities that feed off of energy or loosh. Cannibalism. In slight contrast to the view of the Akrans is presented in the works of Castaneda and elsewhere, the Native American traditions conceived hyperdimensional entities as a mind virus, which they called Wetiko. In an article, Mind Virus Wetiko, Collective Shadow of Humanity, It is explained upon the idea of Wetiko and the shadow, as explained by the brilliant psychologist Carl Jung. The Wetiko is based on the unconsciousness of a collective psyche. Wetiko is a master of distraction, making us look outside of ourselves and find issues and problems there rather than looking within. We find people or groups outside of ourselves that match our projections of evil or darkness, and then falsely believe the darkness is only outside of ourselves. This becomes self-perpetuating feedback loop where we become unwitting protagonists or protagonators of Wetiko. Paul suggests that whether we look into Wetiko as cunning enemy out to destroy us or a cheeky challenger out to prod and poke us into a fuller awareness is a matter of perspective. Obviously, it is more empowering to view the created situations and overcomes of the mind virus as a gift rather than a curse or a burden, because the former view may spur us on to become better people, while the latter may lead us into anger or hate. We do, at least, have had the choice, but unless we are already fully awakened or enlightened individual, we do not have the choice of whether to invite Wetiko into our lives or not. It's already here, and it's not going away unless every last speck of shadow is fully acknowledged. From this perspective, the hyperdimensional entities are a part of a single mind virus, which tries to trick us at every turn, casting us to see problems in others' psychological projection, when the problems originate in ourselves, when really the problems originate within ourselves. Now, how do aliens or demons fit into all of this? Well, how do aliens fit into all of this but I really, truly, 100% believe that aliens are demons. You honestly cannot convince me otherwise. As great and as strong as my belief in Jesus as our Savior, I believe that these aliens are demonic. At this point, the overwhelming evidence for the existence of aliens or extraterrestrial must be mentioned, especially the gray and the reptilians. It is unclear where these beings are the same. It is unclear where these beings are the same as the Akrans, who are not physical, or whether they are physical and therefore subject to psychic attack by the Akrans, just as mankind is. Though it is tended to believe the latter. There are many different whistleblowers who claim to have had physical interactions with greys and reptilians, include Phil Schneider, Nira Isley, Barbara Lamb, Nadira Duran, and many others. There is also the idea put forth by many, such as Whitney Straber, that hostile ET engage in producing an alien-human hybrid race through genetic engineering cannot physically experience Earth in their own bodies, so they appear to be trying to experience it through others. This idea suggests that there is something different, non-corporeal or ethereal about these creatures, just as there undoubtedly is with the Akrans. They cannot quite cross dimensions. However, more research needs to be done in this area. One final note on this aspect of topic. A common theme among stories about hyperdimensional entities and reptilians is that there is some kind of channel which is opened, especially during a ritual. This channel is a two-way street. The possessing force takes over the vessel's thoughts, words, and actions to some degree, while the possessed gets to use borrowed energy and feels a dark rush or an adrenaline high. The main point of this demonic possession is so that the hyperdimensional entity can cross over dimensions more easily into this world. This is very important to remember when looking at a sick satanic ritual performed by the elite, possibly at a place like Bohemian Grove. David Icke's take on this, while Acrons can come from our reality, while Acrons can come into our reality, it takes so much energy for them to remain in our frequency band that they cannot stay long. So they have possessed the elite or the New World Order families, who are essentially Acron families, who channel them and bring about the agenda for Earth. These would be like British royal family, psychopathic CEOs, PDO leaders, are expressions of the Akron mentality on Earth. Even though there is a lot of evidence for the existence of Akrons, we have to consider the possibility that we may be anthropomorphizing them. Perhaps they are actual creatures, or perhaps they are symbolic representations of our shadows, our wounds, or fears. Either way, when these tempting, seductive, and tormenting thoughts arrive, as happens to every human on this planet, you have a real battle in front of you and inside of you. That much we can say for sure. Name the demon. So this is the following ways you can confront and overcome a hyperdimensional entity so that you are no longer a prisoner, although this may take some time, possibly an entire life to achieve. So if ever, just a suggestion on how to prepare better. Name this demon. Once you take responsibility for your own part, your shadow, your unconscious behavior, it loses a grip on you. This is especially powerful when done semi-publicly in front of a safe group of people that you trust. Integrate, don't obliterate. From a spiritual, psychological perspective, overcoming the shadow is all about integration, not obliteration. You can't destroy the dark side, since it will always be there as part of the whole, in contrast to love, so that we can know what love is truly. A spiritual path is about healing. Be the observer or watcher. Develop a practice of watching the voices inside your head so that you don't identify with them. The only way they can actually have power over you is by tricking you into identifying with a certain mental position. Do your inner work. The battle is within. Focus on what's inside of you. Worry about your own shadow, not others. As we all know, that's far easier said than done, right? Revoke all agreements, contracts with negative hyperdimensional entities. With the power, certainty, and authority, state that you are canceling or revoking any agreements with these hyperdimensional entities you believe may have a hold on you. Sharpen your intuition and discernment. Find peace of invulnerability and power inside of you. As Paul Levy says, the only way to defeat a Wetco is to find the place inside yourself which is invulnerable to the Wetco. Learn to laugh at the voices of hopelessness, despair, and temptation. They are not true unless you believe in them. To all, good luck in your battle of confronting your inner demons. And as Plato said, be kind, for everyone is fighting this battle. These are documents that were part from the Stargate project implemented between 1972 and 1995. These are documentation or CIA reports. The idea that aliens exist has fueled the interest of millions of people and inspired hundreds of science fiction books and films over the years. However, while there are many declassified documents describing unexplainable objects and events, there is still no official answer as to whether they truly exist. During the Cold War, CIA agents used every tool available to try and take over the Soviet Union, including some that seemed unbelievable or unreliable, such as research in mind control and even the implantation of spying devices in cats. One such outlandish idea was to employ people who claimed to have psychic powers to allow them to gather information about distant objects or people, something they called remote viewing. This method was used in the Stargate project, implemented between 1972 and 1995. Report description of personal associated ET bases were approved in a publication in 2000 and show the notes of an alleged sighting of extraterrestrial bases in different points in our solar system, including Mount Hayes in Alaska, points in South America or Africa, and another in Titan, Saturn's largest moon. All of this through so-called remote viewing. According to the documents, the hired psychic described the entities supposedly working there as personnel from 3 alien bases performing different tasks. On Titan, he detected what appeared to be a human scientist, while on Earth he observed beings with more extraterrestrial characteristics, such as one with a very large, rounded head. Another was human-like, but lacked defined facial features. He was described as one of the beings as an attractive woman with dark shoulder-length hair. It is also described. The project was ultimately canceled in 1995 after the directors concluded that psychic powers were not reliable, and that is in quotes, as an intelligence gathering. Well, we don't know because it's not canceled. They still just don't publicly talk about it. They still use remote viewing in law enforcement. I myself, and I'm going to be honest with you, I do have a hard time buying into remote viewing. I have a hard time buying into medium. As much as research that I've done throughout 30 years since I had my experience, I'm fascinated by everything along those lines. I just have a hard time with it. That's not me saying I don't believe it real. I just think here's why I have a hard time with it. There are people that can remote view. I believe that 110%. My thing is there are those people that take advantage of it. There are those people that claim they are remote viewing, claim they are psychic mediums, just to have influence over certain people, just to what is known about Stargate project. So basically what I'm saying is I believe that there are people that can really remotely view and find things and help law enforcement. And yes, I believe that but I believe unfortunately that there's a bunch of hoaxers out there. Just like with AI. AI videos are destroying our community because people want to believe so bad that they will believe anything. As sad as that sounds, and as however that may sound, it is true. It is true. And you tell a person that, this person has helped find 14 bodies and this and that, you're may tend to view that person as, telling the truth. Just like when I say on YouTube, there are channels out there that have millions and millions of subs, and then there are channels out there that have 1,000. And unfortunately, those channels with 1,000 subs probably are telling more truth than the ones with the millions. It's just they have 1 million subs, so who are we going to believe? Unfortunately, that's just how the human mind works. What is known about Stargate project? The project cost around $20 million and entered the service of the CIA in the 70s during the Cold War. Work on this topic began after Washington learned that the Soviet Union was allegedly spending tens of millions of rubles annually on research into the capabilities of human psyche. United States Intelligence Service aimed to determine how to apply remote viewing to intelligence gathering against foreign targets, to find out how other countries might be doing the same thing and using it against the U.S., and to conduct laboratory experiments to find ways to improve remote viewing for intelligent use. In 1995, CIA declassified and terminated Project Stargate after realizing remote viewing had limited practical value. It did not produce the concrete and specific information that is valued in the intelligence gathering. Now, this is a little bit of information that I came across. Information pertaining from Andy Pirro talking about CIA, Montauk, reptilians, dimensions, and other When did you start remembering your memories? How did or can you break the program they installed? When I saw what I thought was a human, realized that it was a reptilian / Draco, we also started to realize that the Illuminati, a subgroup of the Illuminati, were involved. NWO plans were made. A group of 40 to 50 men, all 6'2" or taller, trained with 7 to 8 foot reptilian, and also learned different technology and information from 4-foot large black-eyed grays. Learned such things as children from alien breeding experiments. Goes back to learning higher dimensions or evolving higher levels. Goes back to the original Luciferic rebellion, fallen angels. Went into a steel room and watched 2 8 to 9 foot reptilian creatures. One called Rhino, my Nazi handler called it, was attacking what appeared to be a little larger than me. I'm 6'3", so this thing was maybe 7 feet. Canine-like alien creature, large claws, bright yellow eyes. 2 reptilians attacking this creature in a steel room. This canine creature killed one of them when all of a sudden there was a beam came out of a ceiling of the steel room killing instantly the canine creature. Next came in 3 gray with the other reptilian's help, carried it out. Another controller came in with my handler to escort me out of the room. I asked what was that creature and why were they doing that to it. Genetic experiment gone wrong. Had to clean up the mess. This is really, like, if I could, really super small writing. Rhino states, and I could tell by his reaction later, the programmers and handlers were upset about the electrocuted shock of this creature. It was genetically modified and harnessed to become like us super soldiers, to work for a secret program similar to the Manchurian Candidate. Then it all goes back to the basic conflict of basic good and evil. There are dark forces and powers on this earth. We are always trying to cheat away. So that little bit, this Andy Pirro talking about his handler, Rhino, that's what he called him, was a Nazi that worked for the Reptilian, Draco, Illuminati, CIA, NWO, 13 Family, Luciferian freaking agenda. Created these creatures along with super soldiers, created this dog-like creature, modified it, it seemed like they said, modified it to use as a weapon. It apparently wasn't supposed to kill the reptilians. It was supposedly being trained, but it killed one, and then it was killed by using some sort of electricity. So this is hybridized programs. So this is stuff that they were just, using anything and anybody they could get their hands on to. This NWO Luciferian agenda is horrific, and it is all connected. Anyway, that was today's upload. A lot of information. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. A little different, but still all the more real, So thank you for supporting the channel, guys. It is your support, after all, that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories. Judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.